Hi there and welcome to the first of hopefully many Ravnica videos we'll be putting out over Flashback season on Magic Online. Opened a not particularly exciting pack, could take the remand for an easy tick, but Galvanic Arc's a really cool card that you can draft quite a few combos with. Golgari Guildmage is a pretty powerful card. I'm not entirely sure if Galvanic Arc's the right pick here, but I am quite a fan of the enchantment decks. It can get really cool when you start looping them with Drake Familiar and cards like that. So I'm going to run with that and see how it goes. Back in the day, Legends weren't really as good as they are now, but I always forget if Savra is one of the bad ones or good ones. So when you sack a creature, you may pay 2 life. If you do, each other player sacrifices a creature. When you sacrifice a green creature, you may gain 2 life. That sounds powerful, but it's kind of built around me. I'm also looking in this pack. I've got Viashino Fangtail, which is a very good card, and Ribbons of Night, which is possibly my favourite card. I'd say probably top 5 limited cards of all time. Given that I've got Galvanic Arc, I should probably take this Fangtail here. Given that I'm a sucker for card advantage and life gain tagged onto a removal spell, I'm going to take the Ribbons of Night. Ravnica's all about drafting cool decks. Bounce lands, if you've not drafted Ravnica before, are very good. You can quite easily first pick them. Getting them third pick is usually a good sign. I guess in terms of making mana easier, it looks like I'm only 2 picks in, but it looks like I'm probably going to be blue, black, red at this point if I carried on in this way. Obviously, you can't really make any predictions after 2 picks. But I think the bounce land is enough much, is that a phrase? The amount that it is better than Signet justifies its taking it, even though the colours aren't ideal. 3 Dreams might be interesting if I'd open it pack 2, but I think with only Galvanic Arc, it's not really worth going all in on that plan for now. So I'll just take the versatile land. This card is very good. Ravnica's it's got quite a lot of token themes, and creatures were just smaller 10 years ago, or however many years ago Magic was. I was seeing if it's got the date on the card, but it doesn't, unlike real ones. I can't speak. I'm using all the wrong words. However many years ago Magic was, I meant to say Ravnica was, obviously. Flight of Fancy is a kind of enchantment that's also good in the enchantment deck, I was saying, but I think Cleansing Beam is just the pick here. It looks like I'm kind of a control deck at the moment, so yeah, let's run with that. Clutch of the Undercity seems quite an underpowered card, but I don't know why. It just seems like it's quite good in Ravnica. I'm not sure why, because there is a decent amount of removal in Ravnica. I don't know if it's the versatility of having Transmute or the fact that 3 life is relevant, but it just seems like it's often not the terrible card that it looks. Having said that, this pack's quite terrible, but Lurking Informant is actually a lot better than it looks. Games are really grindy in Ravnica, and so just having some kind of inevitability and a way of just annoying your opponent is actually quite a good thing. It's not the ideal 5th pick, but I'll take it. Aha! This is a bounce land that we like. Twisted Justice is sadly not that good. Like I was saying, there are a lot of tokens Ravnica, so a lot of the time it's just 6 mana, draw a card, and they sacrifice a token. Against some decks, I guess it's great, but it's not worth picking over a Dimir Aqueduct at this point. There was a Drake Familiar in that pack as well, you might have noticed, but too early to take those, especially when I've only got 1 enchantment. Drift of Phantasms is actually a really good just 0/5 blocker. There's very little that gets around it, and if I can transmute it for a Galvanic Arc when I need removal, that's pretty good upside. Sadly, not much in this pack that I'm interested in. I don't know what this card does, so let me read it. Whenever a player casts a creature spell, and each player returns all cards of the same name. Basically a mulligan. Transluminant is fine. Probably not going to be green at this point. I could still be... I guess I could be green, black, red, splashing blue. Or blue, black, red, splashing green, or some kind of weird combination like that. Blue, red, green, splashing black. So yeah, I guess I'll take this just because it's the most playable card. I probably wouldn't play Dogpile, especially given how controlling my deck looks so far. This isn't the best 2-drop, but I think we're at the point where we can't really be fussy. It's certainly better than any of these cards. Seeds of Strength is most playable, but green-white is, I think, the one combination I'm not going to be at this point. Consult the Nectar Sage is actually a decent card. Tidewater Minion can be very good when you have pingers, when you have... I've forgotten the name for Dalkin... the one for the mills. Someone tell me the name. Someone who... This isn't a live recording, so you can't really tell me, but... Entrancer, that's the one. It's good when you've got cards like that, but I think for now I'm just happy to take the card draw or discard. I guess you never know what will happen. Moss Dog's not unplayable. Zephyr Spirit is one of those why was this ever printed kind of cards. When it blocks, returns its owner's hand for 6 mana 0/6. Not sure what the upside is there. It's one of those R&D jokes where they obviously printed it for some kind of bet and it got printed and then they regretted it when they realised it's now a wasted card, but who knows. Swamp Walk's actually not terrible. Like I was saying, it's quite a grindy format. Probably be in the sideboard, but having 3/3 for 5 that can't be blocked is actually a decent way of ending the game most of the time. Against black decks, obviously. When they don't have a swamp, not so good. And if you happen to just take out a Moldavine Cloak with it, then obviously that's not an irrelevant part of the card. Don't know what this does, but it's in the colours I'm playing, and it's probably not worth taking Leave No Trace as a hate draft. Although I guess I do have an enchantment, but it's not really an enchantment that you're that bothered about sticking around. This is one of the worst tappers ever. It's 5 mana to tap a creature each time, because it returns to your hand when you've activated it. It's weird how Ravnica actually has quite a huge variance in the power of the card. So you look at cards like this, which is just pure upside. This is, again, a kind of quite efficient card. And then you get cards like Zephyr Spirit and cards like Cyclopean Snare, uncommon. And you just think, why... Whose idea was it to print these cards? It's funny how much variance there is in Ravnica in terms of power level. And you can get the most busted decks with Selesnya Guild Mages for Days and Evangels and Siege Worms coming out your ears. And then you just get these kind of absolute dregs 9th to 10th pick. And yeah, you just think, who designed this format? It's a great format, but it has some funny cards. Here's another legend that I have no idea what it does. Okay, so it mills opponents fairly slowly. Whenever you exile a blue or black card, whenever you cast a blue or black card, you can exile a card off your opponent's library. So if it's blue and black, it exiles 2. I guess I do have the kind of deck that might want to mill opponents, but I would have had to move in sooner. I'm just... my internal debate here is, do I care about a second Drift of Phantasms? And I'm leaning towards yes, I think. It might even be that Circu tables. It's unlikely. But the other option is a Signet, really, and it looks like I'm probably not green at this point, so I guess I'll just take another Drift. Aha. So, powerful cards in this pack. Ruins of Night, like I was saying, one of my favourite cards. Compulsive Research, another very good card. Faith's Fetters, one of the most efficient removal spells ever printed at common. It just completely nullifies a creature, including activated abilities, and gains you 4 life. And we also have a bounce land, one of the cornerstones of the green-white decks, and this card's not great, but it is actually a lot better than it looks. With all that said, I think I'm just going to take the second Ribbons of Night. I can see no issue with playing 2 of those, and just hope I don't play against a deck with Sacrifice Outlets. But even then, it's still 5 mana destroy target creature, so could be worse. I was hoping after that, whatever pick it was, third pick Ribbons of Night. Or was it second? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12, 13. Second pick Ribbons of Night, so not too bad. I was hoping after that I'd get something better third pick, but it looks like it's probably a Stinkweed Imp. This card's slightly worse now that you can't stack damage. When Ravnica first came out, the stack damage rules were still in play, so you could stack damage and then return to your hand with Pill from Reality or something like that. But, in fact, no. Am I lying? Because I don't know if it would trigger if that happened. No, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have triggered, so I'm lying anyway. But anyway, it's still a fine card. It's permanent removal for a flyer. They kind of, if they kill it, you just dredge it back. And it dredges for 5, which sounds bad, but it's unlikely that you'll mill yourself in limited unless your opponent's trying to mill you as well. So yeah, Stinkweed Imp's just a generally fine card. Aha, here we have some other generally fine cards. So there's another pinger, which surprises me because I would have thought that the person to my left would have been, well, not necessarily to my left, but a few to my left would have been taking that Vincino Fangtail in the first pack, but they passed this and this, which is about as good, if not sometimes better. But then there is a Last Gasp in the pack, and it looks like I'm not that heavy red at the moment, possibly even not red at all. There's also Vidark and Dismissive, which is very good, but I think it's slightly worse than Last Gasp. So yeah, I'm just going to take the Gasp and regret passing all these really good cards. It might be that Wojciech Mage is better. I don't know. I haven't drafted the format enough since it came back, and I don't really remember how it was at the time. But like I was saying, tokens was a thing, but Last Gasp is just so efficient as a removal spell that it's hard to say no to it. Here's another card that I don't know what it does, but with a compulsive research in the pack, I probably won't pick it. Oh yeah, that was a cool deck. I remember there was a standard deck that played this, and Firemane Angel, which gains you life in your upkeep when it's in your graveyard or in play. So every turn you get free damage and gain a life. And by free I mean with an F, not with TH. Consult the Night Sages ×2 might be okay, but I think compulsive research is slightly better. Just drawing 3 cards is such a powerful effect, even if you do have to discard one of them. With bounce lands in the format, discarding lands is often not an issue. So yeah, I'm just going to take the research. Also probably going to get rid of this Transluminant now. Strands of Undeath isn't ideal, but it's probably the most playable card in this pack. Spark Mage Apprentice is an option, I guess, but I don't think I particularly need it. It would be a lot better if I had the pingers, because then it obviously becomes 2 damage, which actually kills a lot more, but I'll just take the Strands for now, and it's my first 4-drop. Now, I already have quite a lot of 5-drop removal spells, but it is a fairly slow format, and being able to kill any creature is a decent effect. I don't think I'll take this just because of the 5-drop issue, so the only other option is Stinkweed Imp, but I do already have an Imp and 2 Phantasms, so it's unlikely that anything's going to attack me through the air. I think what I'd be worried about is some kind of big unblockable creature or something that regenerates or that kind of thing, so at this point, yeah, I'll probably just take Brainspoil. It also transmutes Ribbons of Night and Cleansing Beam, so that's a pretty good effect. Yeah, not a whole lot here. Induced Paranoia, if I had been in the mill deck, would be a good pickup, but I think I'll just take the 2-drop here. Just something to block and draw a card early is pretty decent for what my game plan is. Could take another Strands, could take a Nightmare Void. Probably won't play either, but I think the Nightmare Void is more likely to come in from the sideboard if I do play against another fairly controlled deck with some big hitters. I think Nightmare Void's slightly more useful than Strands of Undeath, so I'll take that and put it in the sideboard for now. I'll pop these down in the sideboard just to make it easier to count the cards. Aha, another compulsive research. I think that's probably better than the Drake Familiar. All the good enchantments are in Ravnica and we're at the end of the second pack now, so yeah, I'll just take the research and go full control. Probably won't play this, but I guess there's no reason to not have it. And the Dismiss a Tabled. That must be nice. I'm not sure why that would happen. I guess maybe people just don't know how good it is, because it is a really good card. It's not as good in my deck as it could be, because it's quite a tempo-y card. It's better if you go creature, 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 dismiss your card on top. But it's still very good, regardless. Well, it looks like I got that Drake Familiar anyway. I don't really need to draw any more cards. I probably won't play that many islands. I think it's going in the sideboard now, unfortunately. Don't know what it does. Opponents lose 2 life when it dies for 1/1 for 3. Again, on the slightly underpowered side of things, like I was saying earlier. There are some very, very bad cards. Going into Guildpact, it's hard to say what I want. I think my deck's actually powerful enough that unless I see a really good creature, a really good creature that finishes the game, let's see what this does. Okay, so it's not as good as I thought it might be, just from the fact that it costs 8 mana. What I really need is either blue-red fix, or I still actually have the option of going into blue-black-white if I see some really good oils off, just because I only do have these 2 red cards. I mean, what I really need is early drops and finishers. There are no early drops in this pack. There is no mana fix, so I don't really want to take Pyromatics just because it's so heavy on red. So I think actually I do just have to take the Brighter and see how good it turns out. Yeah, I could always hate the Savage Twister, but I don't really have any creatures, so I don't know what I'd be hating it from. Not the best start to the third pack, but hopefully it'll get better. Well, it's not ideal, but it is a card. It's not ideal for my deck just because I do already have 5 drops and I want something more defensive, ideally. But I really don't need card draw. I've got double compulsive research already, as well as consult necrosages. And realistically, I can't really play any of these other cards. So I'll just take the 5-mana 4/4 flyer, I guess, and hope I don't just die to an early rush. Dazzling Gloom's a really good way of stopping an early rush. Let me just check what Tibor and Lumia actually does. When you cast a blue spell, I'm going to try each creature without flying. Oh, so that's interesting. I guess my options here are, is it Signet? I don't know, is it? Tibor and Lumia and Dazzling Gloom. I don't actually have that much fix at the moment. And given that I didn't get any amazing Orzhov in the first few picks, I almost definitely will be red. I think it's a toss-up. I don't really need Tibor and Lumia. I don't have many red spells, so it's really just giving my creatures flying, and I don't have any creatures. So realistically, it's a toss-up between a solid removal spell. It kills a decent amount, kills guild mages, which is the main thing, or just making my deck slightly more consistent. Given that I already have some life gain, some removal, I'm probably just going to take the Izzet. Getting me to 5 drops a turn earlier is a pretty good thing, so yeah, I'll just take the fix and make my deck slightly more consistent. Aha. So this is interesting. So, Izzet Chronarch is good when you have good instants and sorceries, which I do have. However, Steamcore Weird kind of does everything I want. It shores up the early game and deals with small creatures. Slightly better than Dazzling Gloom does. The only issue, obviously, is that this is on the splash. And I don't really have that much fix at the moment. I think I'm going to take it anyway. I think it's just good enough that it is worth taking over these other 2 cards. It's a shame to pass Chronarch when I have so many good instants and sorceries. But, yeah, I kind of need 4 drops. I'm just going to take the Steamcore Weird. I don't know, I keep talking myself out of it. Because realistically, I only want to play 3 or 4 mountains at this point. Which makes you think Dazzling Gloom's the best? No, I'm just taking Steamcore Weird. Before I talk myself out of it. There we go, that's exactly what I wanted. Some nice blue-red fix and another bounce land. Don't really need the Signet. Bounce lands are just better. So yeah, thank you very much. Savant is a 5-drop, but is very good. I think better than Dragonauts. But then I do have a lot of 5-drops. Maybe Dragonauts is better. I also have a lot of 3-drops though. This is a really tricky pick. It is between those 2. This is a 5-drop and not very good, so it really is between those 2. I think I'm just going to take the Savant. I may regret that. Let me know what you'd have taken. I think that's the trickiest pick I've made so far. This, however, is a fairly easy one. I don't want to take a 1-colour Guild Mage. Rune Boggle can get people, and it's fun when you do, but Repeal is just always solid. There's another Izzet Signet. I'm fairly happy with the mana base of this deck now, with 2 bounce lands and 2 signets. It's a really good deck. I don't think you could really hope for a much better deck than this, to be honest. I may just get overrun by tokens, but if my opponent has any kind of fair creatures, like... Oh, I didn't mean to take that. Well, I was going to take it, but I meant to talk while taking it. If my opponent doesn't have any kind of fair creatures like Streetbreaker Worm, I will just beat them with my removal spells. And card advantage. Speaking of card advantage, let me just check what this does. Becomes quite a target artifact. Okay, it's terrible, so I'll just take the train of thought and possibly not play it. I need to do a kind of review of cuts now. I think I'd probably cut the Reefstalker white. It doesn't really fit in with the theme of the deck. I have a lot of flying blockers and I don't really plan to attack. I got the Wee Dragonauts anyway. And possibly won't even play it. Well, I think realistically at this point, the Sanguine Praetor is going to get the cut. It might be that I don't really have any ways of winning, but... Strato Zeppelin is a way of winning, I guess. Wee Dragonauts. Maybe I do need the Sanguine Praetor just as a way of winning. With bounce lands in the format, you can play 16 lands even if it is a control deck. So I would play the Golgari Rot Farm just as a bouncy swamp. So with 3 bounce lands and 2 signets, I mean, even with 16 lands, that's actually kind of a 21 mana source deck, so that's fine when I've got 2 compulsive research and consult the Necrosages to draw more cards, as well as obviously these cards. It's actually tricky. I'm not sure if I do want to play the Sanguine Praetor. Can't really cut any of the 5-drops, they're already good. I could cut this, it doesn't really fit with the theme of the deck, but it is good enough that I don't really want to. These are all good. These are all good. Surveying Sprite is probably the worst card in the deck at the moment. So it's that or Train of Thought. It's really tricky, actually. I think I'd probably cut the Surveying Sprite just because I do have flying blockers at 3. It's also worth considering that these bounce lands are kind of 2-drops, so you don't want to gum up too many 2-drops. I don't know what this does, but it's a rare, so I'll take it. None of these will get played, but this is probably the most playable. Lionheart Maverick, despite having a pump ability, is still not really playable. Don't want to Martyred Rusalka. Probably won't play Restless Bones, but I did lose to this in draft fairly recently just because I had swamps and I couldn't deal with Swamp Walk. So yeah, the beauty of drafting online is that you end up with a built deck already, so all I really need to do is add these bounce lands, just check that there's nothing I want to play here. I don't think there is. No, I think I'm happy with this. I could play this, but I have quite a lot of 3-drops already, and it's quite an awkward counterspell. It's really bad late game, which is when counterspells are usually best, because they will just discard their hand to get their bomb through, because it's probably only 1 or 2 cards anyway. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with this deck. I've got 2 signets and a bounce land with 5 red cards with Team Core Weird, so I guess 6 sources, that sounds fine. How many black sources? 5, 6, 7 black sources, probably not quite enough. And 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blue sources. So I think I'll swap a blue for a black. The only double blue I have really is Train of Thought, but that can cycle for 1 and that's fine. So yeah, I think I'm happy with this. Got 8 black sources, 8 blue sources, and 6 red sources. Yeah, that sounds fine. So I'll submit and I'll see you for round 1, and I don't know why I've suddenly developed a lisp.